Welcome on stage, Ronny.
Thank you.
Class-based views, anyone? Yeah?
Class-based emails.
There is also class-based emails now.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give Ronny a big hand.
Okay, my name is Ronny, and today I want to talk about a package I've built about a year ago called Django Pony Express. And this is my very first time on stage with a proper talk, so please cut me a little bit slack if something goes sideways. Okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to introduce myself. I motivate why I think this topic is important. We have an extensive history lesson. Just kidding. A status quo, if you look at the Django docs, then the actual solution, and at the end, some critical review. All right, that's me, Ronny. I'm working with Django since 2012. This means version 1.4. It's quite ancient. Since 2019, I am a tech evangelist, which means I have time, for example, to build packages like this. Since recently, I'm a member of the DSF, Django Software Foundation, and I'm the organizer of the Django Meetup Cologne, which is the only Django meetup left in Germany, as far as I know. And if you want to get in touch, please do via LinkedIn. This is the only social media I have, so it has to do. I work at a company called Ambient. We're in Cologne, and we use Django and React.js if we can help it. And they're giving me the opportunity to be here. So yeah, I'm very happy for this. Okay, motivation. Why is creating and maintaining emails such a pain with Django? This is a thing that I heard myself say a lot and from others. And okay, so emailing. Why is this important? Many business applications rely heavily on emailing. Even more if you have end customers on your platform, if it's not just an internal application. Some people might say, okay, but we have like fancy new things like in-app notifications. But the problem with in-app notifications is that at first, maybe they're not legally binding enough for your case. You have to have an email. What do you do if users don't read them, if they don't go to your platform? Well, you have to send them an email about, hey, here are some notifications, please read them. So in the end, emails are a quite important part for many, maybe all business applications, at least in my case. Since the last 11 years-ish, I've worked on about 20 Django applications, more or less. And the things that I found most tedious about working with emails or implementing emails were basically always the same. You would have an HTML part and a plain text part. The plain text part is just for legacy reasons, and it's kind of the protocol. You have to have it, but it's not dry. It means you have two templates. You have to maintain them separately. You would usually have an email template, like a base template, which makes your emails look the same, like different content, but yeah. And you have to have global variables. For example, the unsubscribe link or some URL where your images come from or your company logo or something like this. And I had to set them per email, and I would tend to forget one of them, and then the email was broken, and it was very annoying. Emails felt kind of like an external API, even if the code was in my code base, and therefore they weren't unit tested. I mean, emailing is kind of an external API. I come to this later, but not having tests, as we have heard from Will a few minutes ago, is not so nice. So this would lead to many bugs. And I would find myself build convenience features like the unsubscribe link or setting some headers in every project again and again and again. And this was, again, tedious. So, why is the package called Django Pony Express? The Pony Express was a super fast mailing service in the US in 1960. It only lasted for 1 year because then there was a telegraph. Bad luck for them. Nevertheless, they used ponies for this, and we all know the Django pony, and it was about emailing or mailing, not emailing. So I think the name was kind of fitting. And here's a picture of me with some donkeys. The local zoo in Cologne doesn't have any ponies, so donkeys have to suffice. Okay, so if you're starting or working on a Django application and you want to do emailing, what you do usually, you go to the really great Django documentation. And then you will find more or less this. It's a function, it will send an email. It's very simple. It shows you how to set parameters, they are set directly. But unfortunately, if in my real life cases, the stuff would be way, way more complicated. And it would more like this. I don't know if you can read it back there, but you know, the details are not so important. The thing is that this would be just one of many, many emails I would have, and this whole function. And this contains the from, the to, internationalization, the base variable. Let me see if I have a pointer, nice. Here are these base variables for the template. Then I have here like the two templates I have to define. Then I have to know about how to create this multi-part email, like having this HTML part. Maybe I don't want to really know or need to know that this is the email multi-alternatives class. Maybe I just want Django that it works, right? There would be some kind of logging. Then there would be some error handling. What if something goes sideways? It's still an external API. It's an email provider. Yeah, maybe it just has a timeout or something. And I don't even mention the headers in this example. So this is a lot of stuff I would find myself implementing over and over again. And this is the drawbacks. At first, if I have lots of redundant code, it's not dry. So yeah, this is annoying and has a lot of drawbacks. It's very easy to make mistakes, and I tend to make them over and over again. As I said before, the duplicate templates for HTML and plain text are really annoying because in most cases I wouldn't care about the plain text because nobody's looking at plain text anyway. The unencapsulated email API that I have to know which class to use from Django to send an HTML email. I can't inherit anything. I like object orientation. And every log message would look a little bit different depending on who and when it was built, meaning if I want to do some aggregation from my logs, it was very tedious because everything looked a little bit different and I would find myself cleaning this up over and over again. So, I'm going to take a zip. This is the solution now. That I've built. And we use this in a couple of projects, and this is the feedback I get from my colleagues. It's quite neat. So let me show you why they think that. If you're interested in the package, here's a quite huge QR code which leads you to PyPy. If you're interested, you can check it out there. So class-based emails. As you probably know, we have class-based views in Django and function-based views, and it's kind of the thing that inspired me to go from this function-based views we've seen in documentation before, the function-based emails, to class-based emails. And that means that you have a base email service and you extend your email instances from this, and this will provide most, maybe all of the stuff you need, depending on what your requirements are. You get it out of the box. You stay dry, you only override what you want to change. Since Wednesday it's Python 3.12 compatible, I made sure to get this done before I'm here. And obviously docs, so it didn't happen. It's fully documented, read the docs. So if you want to read up anything or want to know what it's capable of, you can do this there. So if you remember this huge abomination code email thingy I showed you a couple of emails ago, couple of slides ago. This is basically doing exactly the same. You see there's no code duplication, it's very, very less code, it's testable, I come to this later. It's super fast to create new emails because it's just a couple of lines and you can just copy them, adjust a few things and you're good to go. It's very neat. And the thing you need to take care of is that here we don't have an email-based service, but in my case it's the Beer Bear Incorporated. We have the Beer Bear-based email service. So all the stuff that you have to have for your project, the variables for your base template, some customizations for logging or internationalization would go into this base class. So you would extend the base class and put the stuff there. So still you have to do it one time per project, but not one time per email you're creating. And here's an example. I'm sorry, it's quite small, but you know, I will go over the details. This service here will encapsulate, will extend from the base email service, which comes from the package. You can set some headers, and then you have a function get context data. If you used to Django class-based views, this should look familiar. And this is basically where you can set the variables for the base template. And this is the thing that's more or less I have in every project with a little bit more or a little bit less configuration. Yeah, and every email instance you're creating will extend from this custom one. Okay, then a couple of features. Logging, in my experience, is a very individual topic, and logging is not part of the Pony Express package yet, because in all the projects I had to work, it was a little bit different, and so I just decided to leave it out for now. But as you've seen my base class before, you can just add a couple of things. This is quite extensive example just to show you what's possible in theory. This could be easier, and just add the logging in the methods you need to override and customize it to your style. Still, you have to do it, but you just have to do it once per project, so you just get it over with in half an hour and you're good to go. Another thing is internationalization. Out of the box, it works and will take the defaults you set in your Django settings. But for example, here on the right, you see that maybe the language is not set by the request or by the Django settings, but maybe it's an attribute of the user, and the user can decide in which language he wants to have his emails or his content in general. So you can just override this method, get translation, and then do basically all the magic you want to do. You have the recipient, you have the context data. It's a class, right? You can do whatever you want. Then there's another thing I call the reply to dilemma. Usually if you send emails, they will send from some email address called noreply@yourdomain.com. And this is good because it's not an actual person sending this, but it's just some kind of bot or email service or whatever, AWS, SES. But sometimes people want to respond to this or have to respond to this. Imagine, for example, I don't know, somebody gets an email and he thinks it's not applicable for him, or maybe he's confused and he wants to reply. And that's really nice if you set the reply to header to some email address or email account that's actually read by a human being, that people they know, okay, this wasn't sent to a person, but still if they want to hit the reply button, the email goes somewhere and the person can deal with the issue. Then some more stuff if you need more convincing that this is a good idea. It has under the hood an HTML to text conversion. So this means you just have to provide the HTML template you actually care about, and it will render the plain text part. In some cases, you care for the plain text part. For example, if you have a very, sophisticated, fancy system, then you might want to provide it. If you provide a plain text template, then this will be taken. It will not be rendered automatically, so you're good to go. But the default is, it's the solution that's more easy and convenient. Then, as you might seen in my first example of this custom base class, you can set a subject prefix, and this is a thing that's really nice. So it will set a prefix to all of the email subjects. In my case, because the Beer Bear Incorporated, we will set Beer Bear Incorporated hyphen and then, for example, account created or account closed or new transaction or whatever. And this will help the end user who actually gets the email in his email client to filter by them, to make kind of rules, to sort them in something, and everything will look very uniform and neat and more professional in the end. If you want to have some custom validation to ensure that, if this email should really be sent, for example, the recipient needs to have some conditions, the recipient needs to be active, if for example, the user can be inactive, you can put this there in a method. You can change the error handling, for example, if you want to override if this should fail silently or noisily. And attachments are possible, of course, as well, if you want to attach files. Okay, this is the thing, it's a little bit more complicated. I won't go into too much depth. Maybe you know about factories from, for example, Factory Boy, as Will pointed out. In this case, imagine you have an email and you have a business application and you want to inform all of your managers how their employees or their divisions are doing. And basically the email looks the same, but the content differs slightly or a lot per user. And sure, you can just create an email and build some kind of loop and inject the proper data per user. But if you don't want this, you can use the factories. Here's a very simple example. Just note that here you're basically setting this is a thing you've seen before. It's just an email instance class. You just set this here in the factory, and this will take care of the looping and everything. If you want to know more about this, just read the docs, because as it's a little bit complicated topic, and some people might not need this at all. So this was very nice, but I think the greatest benefit kind of fits to this day because we had so many test topics, is we can properly unit test our emails, finally. If you have a unit test and you execute some code that sends an email, Django automatically will put this in the mail.outbox object. It's just a thing, it's lying around, it's basically a list, and this will contain your email. And if you want to, for example, have one email in there and you want to check the content, the HTML content, you have to do mail.outbox on position 0.alternatives on position 0 on position 0, which is not really intuitive, and I had to look it up all the time. It's very annoying. So there's an email test service, and you can just put it in your setup test data. You just need per test, so setup test data, and put it here in a variable, email test service, and then with this basically provides everything you need for testing your emails. And my idea behind this is that I turn this mail outbox to something that looks like a Django query set, because it's a list, like, for example, a database table. You know what I mean? And you can do a filter on this. You can search. You can maybe say, hey, I want the first object, I want the last object. I want to know how many objects are in there, like a count, like the regular things you would do with Django query sets. So how does it look like? Here is a quite typical test case I would have. It's a little bit small. But I'll just go quickly through it. At first, you would just say, I have my email test service, and I filter for a subject of the subject I'm interested in. For example, the email with account created. And I count how many I have there. Then I would say, okay, please now trigger this code that will send the email. Then I will check again for emails with a subject, and then I would assert that I have one email more because I just sent the email. If it's not one email more, then obviously something went sideways. And then I can do a list of emails .first, and this gives me a mail object. This mail object has a bunch of attributes you would expect, like the headers, like CC, to, reply to, and etc. So you can do an assert in, because to is like always a list. There can be multiple recipients. You can check if the email has the right, if it was sent to the right address. And this is, I think, the best part. There's a helper called assert body contains, because we have to have the plain text part. So we will always have, even though we don't set it explicitly, we will always have two parts of content, and some people still might, look at the plain text part. So we have to ensure that it's correct. And what it does is, you wouldn't, at least the way I use it, you wouldn't compare the whole template, but you would just look for certain key elements. For example, it's like the salutation set, is the title correct, as I said, some certain keywords would be in there. And this will automatically check for you the HTML part and the plain text part, and will just complain, hey, here something is off, if something is off. And this saves a lot of time, and it assures that you don't forget something. Because as I said, if I go one slide back, doing this all the time is quite annoying, and it's really hard to tell the juniors to, how this works. There's a little bit more stuff in the documentation again, but this is like the general idea, how it works. So, Outlook. Sending emails is obviously, you need an external API for this, some kind of email provider, whatever that might be. So this shouldn't happen in the main thread, and this is a very common thing that people need to think about. So I was thinking of adding some functionality, maybe with an integration for Django Q or Celery or just Python threading to basically by default not send the emails in the main thread and just to, that you don't have to think about this every time, but it just, that it's, not sent in the main thread. So you don't have to think about it. As I said, the logging thing is not part of this yet. I think I will add in the future some basic functionality for this that you don't have to worry about this. Because in the end, logging is just a plus and you can just disable it if you don't like it. And with a big wink, maybe a pull request to Django core. So, last slide. So, a critical review. There's like a big discussion going on about people saying Django class-based views are not so nice and you shouldn't use them. Function-based views are superior. So why should I put my money on class-based emails? Well, obviously you could write a function-based wrapper for this, but you have to do it yourself, and everything here is already there. So I think it's quite convenient to just stick with this. Then some people say, hey, if I implement like all my 200 emails with this, what if the package becomes discontinued? As always, you can just raise a PR. Everything is at GitHub and open source, obviously. You can always fork the package or just copy the important parts for you into your project and maintain them yourselves. So nothing critical there. And then the last thing, if this is really like kind of closing a gap with Django, why do we need a package for this? Why isn't this part of Django? Well, maybe it should, but it isn't, so I built it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes. Oh, one, two.
I'm sorry I don't have candy.
Oh, I don't know. I could see that you were first.
Oh, then I was first. I'm slightly disappointed by the lack of candy, though. I'm reconsidering my question. No. Oh, there's cake next, I heard. Ooh. You say that you sort of suggest that most people don't care about plain text emails, which I think in Western Europe is true, and the rest of the world is, some people do care about it. So my question is, how do you deal with hyperlinks from HTML in the plain text version of the email? Because of course you cannot click a hyperlink in a plain text email, but if you only show the label and not the href from the anchor element, there is no link. So how do you deal with that?
Well, actually, I don't. I have a package for this. This is a dependency. I think it's called HTML to text. It's quite basic, but it does the job. And this will render, it has some kind of rules how to render things. For example, if you have a table or something, it will just make a pipe. This looks sometimes a little bit odd, depending on your base template. And it will render links, not the thing, the label of the link, but just the URL. And then if you put this to any modern email client, then this will be automatically interpreted again as a link, so you can still click it.
Cool. Awesome, thank you. And cool presentation, by the way, even though there was no candy.
Thank you. I use plain text email, so thank you for generating it. It seems like this would be useful outside of Django as well. Most of it, I guess you're using templates, but aside from that, probably a lot of this could be used outside of Django. What do you think? And if I want to use this outside of Django, what should I do?
That's a really good question. Never thought about this before. Well, it hooks into some of the Django framework, I would say. Like, for example, how to get the translation or the internationalization, the language and stuff like this. But if you want to use this in another scope, I don't know, for your Flask project or whatever, I think you just can copy, the source code and change a few things, because it's not so much code in the end, right? It's just a base class and some stuff that's Django specific, but it should be possible to get the code and change a few things and then make this work in other frameworks, or even just without frameworks.
Any more questions? Questions from the internet? I have a question. So I think I've seen, and I don't want to say something that's incorrect on stage, but in the Django core, I think I've seen that in the Django contrib auth, there is a bunch of emailing going on as like part of the views, like for.
Okay.
And I've somehow picked up a pattern because I've been using class-based emails kind of in my own way, like copy-pasting it from project to project. It's really nice to have it formalized, by the way.
Thank you.
But then I picked up like using templates for the subject. So you use like a template file
Okay.
in order to generate the subject, and then you can use context variables inside it.
Interesting.
You haven't met that?
I go a different approach. I have a method which is called getSubject, and you can override this, and then this is basically the part where this subject prefix is glued together with the real subject of the email instance, and you can override this per email and then do this. I mean, you can just do a render to string thing and then render a template if you want. It's possible.
Thank you. I know that it felt so wrong to use templates for this. Thank you. All right.
But I think it's not. I can't think of a reason why you want to do this, because in the end there won't be anything fancy in there, right? It's just text. You can't have like long text and everything. So I think having this method you can override should suffice in 99.9% of the cases. But if you want to use a template, feel free to do so.
Thank you so much to Ronny.
Thank you.